I'm thinking I might get myself in a little bit of hot water with this video. But hey, let's face it, sometimes the pot needs to be stirred a little bit, and I am no stranger to stirring the pot. I'm not afraid to stir the pot. I'm not afraid to rant a little bit once in a while. And as I was preparing this video and as I was, mulling over the idea that I had for this video, I got more and more excited about it. I think it's a great discussion to have. I'm excited to share my thoughts about it, and if I stir the pot and anger a few people along the way, so be it. That's okay. It's going to be a great video, and I'm excited about this topic. And the topic I want to talk about is what makes good wedding photography. If you follow me on Instagram or, watch me at all, I shot 3 weddings in 4 days, the week between Christmas and New Year's. I only shot like 5 or 6 weddings all 2024, but 3 of them were in that one little week. So it got me thinking about wedding photography, and, I've done probably 500 weddings over my career. We used to do a ton of them. We did like 50 a year for a while. These days it kind of comes and goes. I'll do a bunch of weddings and then I won't do one for a long time. But I got to thinking about what makes good wedding photography. Now, if you've watched this channel for any time, you know I'm a huge proponent of good lighting. And so good lighting is always part of photography, but I want to talk more about the images themselves, not just the technical side of it, although I think I'm going to probably circle back by the end of the video and talk about the technical aspects of photography. But I want to talk about what makes some wedding photos better than others, and what makes one good and one bad, so to speak. Now, before I get into what I consider to be good wedding photography, let's talk about what is popular in wedding photography, because a lot of times what photographers are doing with their photography is based on what's popular and what is trendy. Now, what is popular doesn't always translate into what I would consider to be good photography or good wedding photography, but trendy images or trendy styles very much dictates what a lot of photographers are doing. Now let me throw in this little observation that I have as well. Trendy styles in wedding photography have always been true. Ever since I've been a photographer, there's been trends and there's been styles that photographers have done, but it's never been more true than in the digital age. As soon as the world went digital, and we had presets and actions in Photoshop that we could do different things to our photographs, trends became a big deal. Whether it was vintage color, whether it was super high contrast, whether it was, muted colors, there were always trends. But, it's even more and more true today. And I shouldn't say I blame digital, but the fact that we can manipulate and do anything to our images is one of the biggest reasons or one of the biggest drivers for these trends. What looks popular and what styles are popular. Let me give you some examples. And for the record, these images that I'm showing are my images. They're not the way I processed them, but I processed them trying to match what is trendy, if that makes sense. I don't know if I did a good job, so if you think I did a lousy job, that's fine. This is not my style. I'm just trying to emulate the things that I see that are very trendy right now. So one of the big trends or the popular looks in wedding photography right now is light and airy, and it's been like this for a while. But light and airy is everything's very bright and almost looks overexposed, and you're losing detail in the whites, and so light and airy is a big one. The other one that is starting to come is almost like a polar opposite, and that's kind of this dark and moody look. And a lot of photographers are doing this dark and moody and warm tones and dark and moody is a big thing now as well. The other one that I've seen recently that I really have a hard time putting my mind around is the blurry images. It's just a matter of dropping the shutter speed down to a 15th of a second or something so that you get some camera shake, and they just look blurry. Now, I can see that working when it comes to a motion shot. I remember a shot my wife and I used to show in our wedding portfolio. A bride was coming down the stairs and there was little bit of blur to it, and showed motion. It was a beautiful image. But just to have two people standing there and drag the shutter so that it's blurry, out of focus, to me it looks like a mistake. But I'm pointing it out because it's kind of trendy right now. Okay, so in my humble opinion, what makes a good wedding photograph is it has to be timeless. And what I mean by that is it needs to look amazing 20 years from now, 30 years from now. If you're going to look back on it years later and think, ooh, what were we thinking when we took that picture, then it's no longer timeless. For what this is worth, and I'm kind of going in different directions today, but if you are a wedding professional, in this case we're talking photographers, you're not just a photographer. You are part of a couple's biggest day of their lives. You are documenting the biggest day of their life. And, there's some importance to that. There's some responsibility in that. And I think the images need to be timeless. Now, if you take some of the tuxedos they wore in the 70s, if you take the hairstyles they had in the 80s, these images are going to be dated on their own based on hairstyles and clothing styles and stuff like that. And I don't, as a wedding photographer, want my images to be dated based on the style of photography that I'm doing. They might be dated because of the way people look, the glasses that they were wearing or the tuxedos, but I don't want them to be dated based on the style of photography that I chose. So I think we have to ask ourselves the question, what makes a wedding photo timeless? I can't just throw out this word kind of like, hey, cinematic. What does that mean? What does timeless mean? And I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Here's something that pops into my head. In the 1970s, there was a TV show called The Brady Bunch, and most of us either grew up watching it, grew up watching the reruns, we've heard of it, whatever. We know that show. And if you look at the kitchen in The Brady Bunch, when that show aired on TV, that kitchen was probably state of the art. Everybody wanted to have a kitchen like that. It was, that was the kitchen to have. If you look at it today, it's like, oh my gosh, why would anybody have ever done that to their kitchen? That kitchen was not timeless. It fit an era. And so that was not timeless. So if we do these photographs that have a style to them that is not going to stand the test of time. In other words, maybe it's like this. If a bride has wedding photos and she has a daughter, and that daughter grows up and is 30 years old, and she's looking at those photographs of mom at her wedding, is her knee-jerk reaction to go, oh my gosh, mom, those are so funny. You look so weird in those pictures. Or is she going to say, wow, those are amazing images. I want my wedding photos to look just like that. That reaction is, to me, a true test of a timeless photograph. So I think I made my point that creating timeless images is important. But what makes a wedding photo timeless? To me, I think one of the big things about a wedding photo being timeless is that you are capturing moments in kind of a photojournalistic way. The more you pose it, the more you do cheesy, especially trendy, cheesy poses. I can remember years ago, it was a big trend to have the groom's back to the camera and the bride would hold the marriage license over his shoulder, and she'd have her head over the other shoulder and she'd be pointing at the marriage license. Now, it was kind of a cute shot, but in a lot of ways it was kind of cheesy and not timeless. I mean, it was trendy to do things like that. So you get these classic poses, these classic moments. I think that's part of it. I also think, when you do these trendy colors, whether it be really contrasty or really, you know, and I'll say it, the dark and moody things, I'm not sure that those are going to be all that timeless, especially when faces are real dark and you can't see people's faces so much. The other one that I think is, going to get dated rather quickly are these images where the bride and groom are this big in the frame. And you just see this, I don't know, some of those are beautiful, some of this works, don't get me wrong. Light and airy occasionally is beautiful. But I think some of those things will keep it from being timeless. Odd colors, you know, whether it be, like I said, contrasty or whatever. You know, high saturation, I don't think that's going to be very timeless. Black and white images, unless your bride and groom just don't want black and white, I think black and white is very timeless. It has a classic look to it, and it works really, really well. So capturing the moments, not cheesy poses. I think black and white adds a lot to a timeless image. And yeah, I mean, those are the things I think that are good characteristics to make a good wedding photo. I've pulled a bunch of images for this video, both examples of what I'm talking about bad, but also ones that I think are good. And I'm going to, right here, put a photo that is one of my favorite wedding photos that I've done for a long time, and I actually just shot it a year or two ago. This, to me, is just a classic, timeless moment in the day. I love the bridesmaid over on the left side looking out the window. I love how the other bridesmaid is helping with the bride, and it shows the room where they were at. And yeah, I mean, to me, this is just a timeless image. This shot right here, where same wedding, after the ceremony, they're walking out the processional, they're leaving, and he's helping her with her dress going up the stairs. Now, I left it in color. It could definitely be a black and white shot. That, to me, again, timeless moment, and just makes for a great wedding photo. Now, like I said, I might get myself in a little bit of hot water in this video, but let's end like this. And are we ending on a bad note? Maybe we shouldn't end like this. Anyway, one question that I've asked myself for a long time is, where do these trendy fads, if you will, popular trends come in? And at the beginning of the video, I said I wasn't going to talk too much about lighting, but I'd circle back on lighting. I think a lot of the trends that happen because there's some lack when it comes to technical knowledge. For instance, hear me out. The light and airy thing. If you backlight, and backlighting is a big deal. If you ever watch a lot of photographers, they'll talk about go out at golden hour, the sun is behind somebody, and you get this shape and dimension from the sun coming from behind, but they don't light the person in the front. So the difference between the sun hitting the backside of their head or coming from behind and the light on the front of them is so drastic, what they end up having to do is pull the exposure slider way up so that you get a decent exposure on their face, and it blows out the background. And you get this light and airy look. So I think bad lighting in the first place leads to light and airy. Now, I'm not saying that's why everybody does light and airy, don't get me wrong, but I think there's that mindset. Dark and moody, maybe. I don't know why people do dark and moody like that. I don't think that's compensating for a bad technical thing. But bokeh is another one. Everybody loves creamy, buttery bokeh. What a blurry background ends up doing, and I'm skewing off again, I apologize, but what that does is create some depth in your photograph. Well, photographers have walked away from adding dimension to their photographs through lighting, so they line somebody up in the shade, flat, boring, lighting that has no dimension, and they have to get depth in their photograph by blowing out the background so much. So that's where bokeh came along. I will argue that pretty hard, that, you know, everybody loves these 1.2 lenses because they don't know how to light things anymore. So I don't know. There's my little rant for this video, that, you know, trendy, popular fads in photography come from somewhat of a lack of technical know-how when it comes to lighting. But anyway, the point of the entire video is what makes a good wedding photo, and I really think the key word is timeless. You need to create timeless images that the bride and groom will not only cherish from the day, but be proud to show their kids and their grandkids. And those kids and grandkids will ooh and ah because grandma looks so good in her wedding, and she wants to look just like grandma did. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the matter. I've been doing wedding photography for a long time, so take it for what it's worth. But I would love to hear your comments, questions, and complaints. As always, let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about light and airy and dark and moody and blurry and all the stuff that seems to be trendy right now. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, think about subscribing. I would greatly appreciate that. Leave me a thumbs up if you would. And as always, I will see you in the next video.